Death's Gambit is the 2D action platformer set in an intriguing world with creative boss fights that is hugely replayable, and I like it a lot.
Shame it's always the cowards that survive.
The lands of Siradon are filled with immortals, and after falling in battle, you sign a deal with Death himself to travel across the map to eventually reach the citadel of Siradon, where lies the source of this immortality that you must destroy for him. You see, Death kind of relies on people dying, so immortals are bad for his business. The world here is a tight collection of unique, distinct areas that are all interconnected by a long underground road that you can travel on by horse to easily get from one area to another. You've got the snowy heights of Obsidian Vale to the horror-like sci-fi depths of Garde Tum. Everywhere's got a really individual look about it, and as you play, you start to notice all of these little details in the background. Little things that are easy to miss, but when you do notice them, it really adds some character to the setting. The game's camera does this thing where it pulls back to really show off a particular moment, or to give an area a sense of scale, and the more that you play, the more the map gets etched into your brain, so at any time you can easily think out the fastest route to get from one area to another. And this right here is the sign of a well-designed game. Every section is memorable. It's not too big or bloated, so every little area has something that makes it stand out. But what about the combat? Well, it's all about timing and risk and reward. You see, every action takes up stamina, from attacking to blocking to rolling, and your stamina is tight, so you need to perfectly time when to do each of these actions, and one mistake can be pretty fatal. You need to hit them enough with whichever weapons you want to arm yourself with, but also try and keep something in reserve for when they decide to fight back. And remember to use those phoenix feathers to either heal or add 10% to your damage. Now, while on the topic of fighting, let's talk about the boss fights. These are the absolute highlight of the game, although a few of them do deserve better boss theme music. You need something a little more epic to get you pumped for the fights. Anyway, they usually have some creative mechanic or extra thing to bear in mind. There's the tilting floor of the Tundra Lord Kaeon fight, to the invisible layers that you can climb up and down during the Galaxy Mage Amulvaro fight. And there's no need to worry about losing XP when you die, so you'll often end up battling them over and over again without having to sacrifice much. For the most part, it's not too challenging. With a healthy combination of leveling up, which is often done by finding a route to rinse and repeat to gain levels fast, and by learning all of the boss's moves and how to best defend against them, then in theory they should be okay to handle, at least on the first playthrough. By doing a bit of exploring, you can also find 2 books on each of the bosses that make you do 5% more damage per book against them. I like this idea of researching who you're going to be fighting beforehand, and would have loved for it to be taken further, perhaps giving advice on a best weapon to use or how to defend against a certain attack. The books could even have contained some kind of magic spell that stops one of their moves from working or something like that. Researching your enemy is a nice idea, but I just wish that it did something more with it than just a 5% damage boost.
Insanity is trying the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Usually this kind of action platformer doesn't have any interesting characters, but here you are constantly bumping into a range of fully voiced companions. This means that around every corner there are 4 things that you can run into: platforming sections, combat sections, a boss, or a character section, which helps flesh out the world a bit more and provide story.
In your world, the crows are my eyes.
The highlight character though has to be Death. He's not really good or evil, but he just wants order to return to the land, even if that means a lot of people die. In fact, the contract that you have with Death means that all sorts of weird things happen every now and then when you die. There's flashbacks to your past, strange dreams, nightmares, and all before waking up brand new at the last Death statue that you visited. It's nice that the game addresses what happens to you when you die. It dissolves a lot of the frustration of dying, as it makes it feel like maybe that was supposed to happen, letting you see more of the game. Don't worry that that night absolutely destroyed you, here's an extra cutscene to make up for it. Bosses that kill you even acknowledge that they've killed you before, mocking you for coming back to try again.
How many times have you died trying to reach me? Is all your pain worth it?
I find this game very replayable for many reasons. 1, the game's not too long, especially when you know what you're doing, know where to go, know the best patterns to beat certain bosses. So the thought of playing again isn't as daunting as, say, starting a new game in a 100-hour plus RPG. 2. Going back to refight bosses in heroic mode is not only challenging, but it gives the bosses a whole new moveset, making you have to relearn what to do, and the reward is a whole ton of XP. 3. The initial classes that you can start with all play slightly differently. For example, soldiers gain the energy needed to do special moves by blocking, nobles have an extra vendor selling more luxurious items, an acolyte of death has extra checkpoints scattered around the world. It makes it worth trying to do things again as a different character, as it changes the way that you play. And let's not forget the ultimate challenge, cancelling your contract with death, which makes you mortal, and so one death, game over. Now that's quite a challenge. Anyway, thanks for watching, bye.